Good morning, everyone. It's James Carpenter with Country Living, and we're going to start a new project today. Would you like to come along? I'm sure you would. All right, so we'll talk about it a little bit. I'll show you what I've been doing since I haven't posted in a few days. So far this morning, I've been sorting. I've got a lot of sorting to do, obviously. But let me turn the camera around and I'll show you what I've been doing. All right, I got more of that hardware, that swing set hardware from my Habitat connection. It comes in a box like that. And what I do is I empty out all the boxes and I put everything in a segregated area by size. And this is pretty much what you end up with. I've got one. Well, I'm sorting the box now. I just went and had a meal. I've got one more box to sort. I had about 9 or 10 of them sitting on this skid. This skid is my most recent purchase from my Habitat connection. Now, that's more of that southern yellow pine. Those boards are roughly 39 inches long. They really work good for shelving and other projects. I made that little thing for the cat out of this lumber. There's an idea what it looks like when it's in the box. Now we're going to go over here to the shipping container and I'm going to show you what I have in store for this afternoon. All right, it's starting to look a little bit cleaner in here. I posted this in one of my other videos, but it's more on it than it had last time. I did find my 4-inch paintbrushes. They're there, and we got string, and we just got all kinds of stuff. But another thing that came with that Habitat deal was a whole box full of stainless steel bolts. So I was out of those little plastic totes. So what I did is I built this wooden box out of some of that scrap lumber. And it turned out pretty nice. I almost like it better than plastic, to be honest with you. It's old school looking. I sorted all this stuff this morning. All right, here you see one bolt, and you see 4 red containers. They're full of the same bolt. And if that's not good enough, there's a complete box completely full, and another box behind it completely full. So I believe we've got enough 5.5-inch carriage bolts. Now here we have, there was a box of washers in the mix. And then behind that, if you can see it, I hope it's not too dark in there. Those are nuts, 1/4-inch nuts. And these are probably 1/4-inch washers if I had to guess. Now these things here, and there's a big container of them. These are little caps, and this is part of that swing set stuff. I think these little caps you would put over the end of the bolt so that a child playing on the swing set would not get cut by the bolt. Now that box back there, it hasn't been opened. It says 4-piece glass scraper combo. There's 8 of them in there, and they're just a packet, and they got all these different razor blade type knives for cleaning labels off of glass and different things like that. And of course down here's the paint rollers. We talked about those in one of the other videos. Up there in that tote that says 2012, that's all gloves. So that's where we're at, but I'm going to spin around here and we're going to look at this lumber here. I haven't measured it, but it looks like it's more than 12 inches wide. I did measure the height. It's It's about 5.5 feet tall. So let me explain what I'm going to do. I'm going to take 2 of these boards. Now let's go back out here. Oh, all these joist hangers and stuff. And I mean, there's one heck of a variety. I sorted all them out this morning. So what I've got in mind for this shelf is obviously to use more of this southern yellow pine scrap lumber. And when I was measuring these, it turns out that's how many more brackets I got. These brackets are really nice. And then up here is another big stack of them. And obviously it's all coming from that hardware. So what I want to do is I'm going to take those 2 big uprights. I'm going to take the brackets and I'm going to screw them to the uprights. And then I'm going to run my shelf across the other part. So if you can get the idea here, we'll take one bracket, we'll mount it like that, and then the shelf will set on top. But as we go along, I will keep you updated on that. Here's all the boxes of fasteners that I've already sorted. For what it's worth, we dug the potatoes the other day. We got them in here kind of drying out. And then other than that, we're still working on all these fasteners. And everything you're looking at here was basically somebody else's scrap. You know, there's a few things here that I probably had to purchase from Home Depot, but I do my best not to have to do that. So let me turn the camera off, finish sorting these fasteners, get them put away, and then I'll get a couple of those boards out, square the ends up, and do a layout for the brackets, and we're going to build a shelf. Okay, I got everything in boxes by size. Obviously this is just temporary. Let's just clean it up a little bit. Now I'll take a moment here and show you these labels. If you need to pause the video and read the label, that's fine. This little tote here has a variety of stuff. There's washers in there, there's bits, there's locking nuts. There's quite a bit in there. And then this is just a 2-inch screw. We got some other screws here, and then we've got these, and these, which I really like these. You put these into a board, then you can screw a bolt into it. And then of course the brackets. So I've got myself in a position now where I believe I can start building that shelf after I remove all those potatoes from the workbench. Okay, I've got it pretty much set up. I trued up the ends, got them square, both ends. Pulled a measurement of 73 inches, made both of them the same length. And what I've got is I've got this clamp, and it's on that speed square. And the reason it's there is because I need to keep this straight, so the shelf straight. Okay, so then when you come over to this side where the bracket is, I've got it right on the edge. I didn't want it, I wanted a little bit of wood, but there's not much, maybe a 1/16. Now, if you look at this tape measure, it depends on the angle of the camera, but it is centered on 7 inches to the center of that hole. And obviously I'll put another screw in that hole. The board itself is 14 inches wide, so 7 is half of that. So what the plan is to take these screws that came from Habitat, this cedar lumber that came from Habitat, and the southern yellow pine will be the shelving, which came from Habitat. So we're doing this on a pretty streamlined budget. So I'll set the camera up. You can watch me drill one of these. And then once I'm done with this one, I'll probably turn the camera off and I'll go down through there and put a few of them on. I know you don't want to watch every one of them. I did notice one thing here. Obviously the hole that I drilled was not perfectly centered, so I'm going to reclamp the speed square. Make sure we keep this thing square. Okay, so there you go. You got the 2 bolts in there. I mean, this thing is beyond rigid. I will determine my distance between the 2 shelves and I'll start setting more brackets. Okay, I pretty much have all the brackets on but one. I left this one off for a reason. You'll notice the bottom hole is smaller than the top hole. Now earlier I started with this hole. That was the only one I did that with. The rest of them I started with this hole. The reason I started with this hole is because you got a little wiggle room like this to keep it flush. So I wanted to explain that. And then I wanted to explain how I got my distance. This piece of 2x4 is 1.5 inches. All right, and then I put my jug in there. If you want to see the nutritional facts, there they are. I put the jug in there. So what's going to happen is, so basically, the shelf will be 3/4 of an inch, which would be about there, and then I'll have some head space with this. But just to give you an idea, they're all on there. They all have 2 of these 2-inch heavy-duty leg screws in it. And of course that goes all the way down for this one. Now the spacing on this top shelf is considerably larger than the rest of them. Because if I would have put this one in sequence with the rest of them, I'd have a tiny little 4-inch shelf up here, and I didn't want that. So I got one larger shelf at the top, and the rest of them will hold these containers perfectly. Now those is pork rinds, and because I'm a diabetic, I gotta watch my carbs. And as you can see, it's only 1 gram. So that stuff's not bad. So I eat a lot of those. And I'm using them to put the fasteners in, and it's working out pretty good for me. See, I got some more empty ones over here. And earlier in the video, I showed you other ones that I've already filled up with stuff. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut all the shelves to length. Now, obviously, they're 1x10s, so I'm going to take the table saw, which is over here, and I'll have to rip some of them down to get that last few inches that I need to make a full shelf. Alright, I got the shelves cut, and this is what I'm doing. I'm drilling a hole through there. I'm putting one of them fasteners through from the other side, and I'm putting a locking nut on it. So that's what's going to secure it on both sides. I think that's going to be adequate. Now, I told you earlier I'm going to have to cut a board to fill in this gap. I can rip that through the table saw. Over here is my fasteners. The locking nuts. I don't know if the camera will focus on this or not. But that little nylon ring there is what locks it. And then the washers. So, I'm about done for this day. I'll get back at it in the morning and we'll finish this shelving unit up. Okay, I'm going to show you how I drill the holes and put the bolts in there to hold these shelves on. First of all, I get the shelf all lined up. It's squared to both sides. I double check that before I drill. Now I'm going to drill a hole. And I'm going to put one of these bolts in there. You can see it's got the star head. Like that. Then I'm going to put a washer on it. And those locking nuts that we talked about, I'll put one of those on there. We'll grab the wrench, 1/2 inch, and the star bit to drive this. Well, pretty rigid. And then the process just goes on. I drill the next one. Put a bolt through. Put a washer on it. Put the locking nut on it. I kind of like that. I'm finding that if I'm going to call it over tighten it, it sucks the head of the bolt down into the wood a little bit. And it's going to make that little lump right there where these two bolts are not as what I want to say, it rough, they would stick up approximately 1/4 of an inch if I didn't do what you see here. Countersink them just a little bit. Now let me look at some of them from yesterday. Yeah, you see how much more prominent that is? That's roughly 1/4 of an inch. If I can sink those in there, I'll go back through and retighten these and pull them in a little bit. But I think that's the best way to go. And again, as soon as I get all these in, I'll rip the rest of it and we'll get it put in. Okay, I got all the boards ripped. There's 6 shelves. There's 5 boards here. I got one down there. I'm going to show you how to install here in a second. Now, one thing I want to say is on these boards, I found an average number, which was 38 inches. And some of these boards that were brought in here as scrap actually are precisely the same size. So I did not have to do any cutting down to 38 inches. I had to sort through and find boards that were 38 inches long. Now, when I ran them through the table saw, the second half, or the other half that was slightly larger, but as you can see from this strip, it was only slightly larger. So I ran them through, got my 4.5 inches that I needed, and then I turned around, ran them through again, and that's where I came up with this little leftover strip. All right, so let's go around here. There's a couple things that I've been doing, obviously off camera. I got all the shelves in there, as you can see. And now we're in the process of putting in the second half of the shelf, which will go right here. I'll probably have to take a clamp and pull this in and then run a drywall screw in this way. I had to do it down here. You can see down here I got a pretty nice seam, but I did it with 5-inch deck screws. I pre-drilled and sunk this 5-inch deck screw in on both sides. This is the other side here. If I can find it, there it is. And there it is. So, this is, once this shelf here, this top shelf's bolted in, and all the other shelves, this project's pretty well done. So let me get started. I'm going to do the same thing on this board that I did on them other ones. I'm going to drill a hole through there, put the bolts through it, and get all those bolted in. Okay, I got started on this second part of each shelf, and I got to be quite honest with you. The distance from here to here is 4.5 inches. But by the time you get down to the end, it's 4 5/8. So we have an 1/8 of an inch difference. And obviously, it's not a perfect world. Do I want to take a hand planer and try to take some off? No, I'm taking the path of least resistance. And what I'm doing is I'm taking some of those cutoffs I showed you earlier, the thin strips, and I made me some wedges. And I put the wedges underneath the board so that I could get this flush. So that's working out pretty good. Yeah, it's going to leave a little bit of a gap right there. But once you start putting stuff on the shelf, I don't think it'll be noticeable. Now, over here, as you can see on this corner, I tightened right up. I put the clamp back on it. And I came over here and I put that 5-inch screw. So now we got 3 5-inch screws down through here. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, on this side here, I I drilled a little bit too close to the top. I should have been further down. Probably would have been safe if I would have been between these two holes. Okay? But trying to get the maximum amount of pull, I went as high as I could, did not work out. I put the 5-inch screw in there, and basically I ended up putting a finish nail in here, and the portion that cracked, you can see the crack, I pulled that back down. I think we're going to be all right there, but the end, look, everything's nice and flush. I got the rest of the bolts in there. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you got 4 bolts going into those heavy-duty brackets. I'm pretty certain that it's going to be one heck of a shelf. I've been contemplating whether or not I have to put any X bracing on it, but I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not seeing it or feeling it. So let me get the rest of these boards installed. Okay, I wanted to point something out here real quick. We obviously talked about the shims so that we can make this region flush. But what I'm finding now that this big piece of cedar is probably got a little bit of warpage to it. So I got the clamp on there. What that clamp does is that pulls everything together, holds it flush for me. I still have my shims down there. At least I think we can see them. Hang on. Right there. I've got the shims in there. That's keeping me flush here. The clamp is pulling everything together nice and tight. And then I drill and put the bolts through there and lock everything down. All right, all the shelves are in. I wanted to show you this. This is probably about a 3 by 2.5 inch hardwood, piece of hardwood. What I did is I put it in there. I had to make a spacer because those orange looking brackets took up some of the space. But what I ended up with is a spacer and then this board. And then I put 5-inch deck screws in it. And I also put screws from the top coming down. I'm not going to show you all of them, but that's it. So I'm going to stand this thing up and show you the final product. Okay, so this is how it turned out. Very well built. Those brackets, remember those were part of that habitat stuff, so I didn't pay a lot of money for those. The bolts that hold all this together, habitat stuff, I didn't have a lot involved in that. And this southern yellow pine, and this was also from my habitat connection. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Probably I don't know how to say it, very well built shelf, unless somebody can put something in the comments where I could make it better. I want to thank you for watching my videos. I appreciate it. If you enjoy the content, please subscribe. I'd really like to build this YouTube thing, get some kind of retirement out of the deal. All right, with that being said, subscribe, hit the like button, and thank you for watching.